Ajnanitimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshunamilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaye Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravajantam Manupetya Apetya Kutyam Apaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putete Tan Maitaya Taravo Binedus Tam Savabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tito Jayamudirayat Bhaktya Vihina Pararalakshay Kiptastakamari Tarangamadye Kripa Mahitvam Sharanam Prapanna Brinde Namaste Charanadavindam Tave Vasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Okay, so we are going to offer our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padmanitya Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pada Stotra Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada and Sri Guru Pada Padmanitya Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pada Stotra Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, under our exalted Rupa Nuga Guru Varga, all the Sammo Vaishnavas Vaishnavis. So we are continuing chapter 22, which describes the Katyayani Vrata of the Vraja-kumaris, and also Krishna subsequently stealing their garments on the last day of their Vrat, their yajna. And we've been hearing all this incredible dialogue between them, revealing the extraordinary development of prema between them, between Krishna and these gopis. And now Krishna has given them the greatest challenge of all, to walk out, because he's got all their clothes, they have nothing on, and then to come out and completely exposed, raise their hands above their head and offer him obeisance, which they have done. And so, the last verse we read was, seeing them bow down like that, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the son of Devaki, gave them back their garments, feeling compassionate towards them and satisfied by their act. Bhagavan Devaki Sutta. Once again, reaffirming Krishna's identity as God, so that this is not misunderstood to be some licentious, mundane pastime. Right? These gopis are his Shaktis, his eternal associates. There's nothing mundane about this. This is an extraordinary pastime, which also teaches us about the limits of the most perfect kind of love, selfless, that these gopis have. And Krishna's indebtedness to them, because what did we read just before? He was, what did we say? That they were, of course, purified from all sins. But there was a verse where Krishna was saying, if you surrender to me like this, then I will surrender to you, body, mind, and soul. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur revealed that. So this is reciprocal. This is not one-sided. This is not like some people would imagine some kind of patriarchal exploitation. No, this is the highest reciprocation of pure love, that Krishna is giving his everything to these gopis. So, now we start with this verse. Let me just make sure something here. Let's see. Just a moment. Okay, that's good. That's good. And here we go. Text 22. Drid, oh God, I can't see. Dridham palabdas trapaya chahapita prashtobita kridanavachcha karita vastrani chaiva parhitan yatapamum ta naibhyasuyan priyasanga nirvrita. Although the gopis had been thoroughly cheated, deprived of their modesty, ridiculed, and made to act like toy dolls, and although their clothing had been stolen, they did not at all feel inimical towards Sri Krishna. Rather, they were simply joyful to have this opportunity to associate with their beloved. And remember, Shukadeva Goswami is citing what appears to be the case: ridiculed, right, cheated, deprived of their modesty. But what were the gopis experiencing this entire time? The joy and realization that Krishna is rewarding them their wish, that they wanted to have him as a husband. And so even though they weren't married in this way, he was treating them as only a husband could treat them, with his joking words, his intimate jokes, his desire to see them unclothed. They realized this is only the mood of a husband, and because they are completely selfless and their every act, every thought is only to make Krishna happy, they realized by all of this joking back and forth that he was becoming extremely happy. And what does that do to them? And remember reading in the 8th chapter of Madhya Lila, Ramananda Roy describing that all the gopis, although they desire nothing for themselves, when they see Krishna become happy in their own hearts, they feel enormous satisfaction and happiness. This is the immediate result. And then they become extraordinarily even more beautiful. And Krishna, seeing that they've become happy and even more beautiful, then he becomes even more happy and he becomes even more beautiful. And then they just completely nourish each other in that way. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, even though the gopis were treated contemptuously, they still acted favorably toward their beloved by doing what would have been impossible for others to do. Right, even anybody in Braj. Could the older gopis do that? The friends of Mother Jashoda, could they have acted like this? Impossible, right? This is the speciality of Shringar Ras, Madhurya Ras. The gopis can serve with everything, all their heart, all their senses, all their body. Impossible for others to do. And astonishingly, the gopis became blissful by this. The gopis had been deceived to the extreme by Krishna's words, criticizing their nakedness. Not criticizing their beauty, but chastising them. Oh, what have you done? You've committed an offense to the Devas, right? To Narayan himself by acting like this after the vrat, after the yajna. After forcing them to give up their modesty, Krishna mocked them, insisting that they come get their clothing. He made the Vraja-kumaris dance like puppets, kridana vat. When Krishna said, I am telling the truth, this is not a joke, the gopis did not find fault in him. Nor did they criticize Krishna when he told them to hold their folded hands above their heads as atonement. Though all this was done to them, the gopis felt blissful because they got to meet their beloved, their Priya. They actually became even more attached to Krishna for doing all these things. The conclusion is that when one is considered dear, priya, whatever that dear one does is experienced with pleasure, even if it gives pain. Yeah, so this is very difficult to understand for ordinary moralists because they try to put God under the constraints of ordinary morality. Right? But ordinary morality is there in this world for the purification of materially conditioned persons accustomed to and inclined towards sinful activity. So they can't understand how God is completely outside of that. And furthermore, even if they're students of Vedic literature and study the activities of different incarnations, they may see that most of the incarnations themselves act within the constraints of morality in order to teach and gradually elevate people. Like Lord Ram, he's called Maryad Purushottam, that he is the Lord who comes to teach morality, and he follows it to the upteenth degree, even in such a way that people become aghast. How could he send the perfectly chaste and pure Sita to the forest, right? But he did it, not because he thought that she was unchaste, but because some citizens had some doubt. And there's a phrase in modern English, Caesar's wife should be above suspicion, right? When you're on that position, in that post of king, you have to exhibit morality to the highest degree. So he had to do that. But Krishna would never do such a thing. He would never do that because they're activities of a completely different quality. And remembering that that which is in the spiritual world is imperfectly reflected in the material world. So that kind of activity that they may perform, if it's performed here, would be considered abominable. I mean, in fact, Manigriva and Nalakuvara were cursed by Narad for their activity, right? Bathing in the river naked with young girls, and then not showing any shame and even criticizing Narad when he came and broke up their activity. So they were cursed, but then what happened? Narad was so compassionate that he made them become trees, but in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj in Braj, so that they saw Krishna's early years, his Bala, activities, and developed great attachment to him. They were purified from their sin by being trees and being in Braj, and when Krishna and his associates manifested, then they developed the necessary attachment. And when Krishna knocked these trees down by the touch of the mortar, which was attached to him, then they became completely purified and developed that prema. And then were sent to Goloka Vrindavan, where they became, who did they become? Snigdhakant and Madhukant, the great panegyrists, the poets, the reciters of Krishna Lila. So in other words, whatever one experiences, if it gives pleasure to the beloved, it's not seen as pain. Even in this world, parents will work so hard to protect and raise their children. And they won't begrudge that work. They'll feel satisfaction in that because they have so much love for their children. Of course, more and more, these qualities are being degraded, but we can understand that example. So, next verse. Paridaya svava sanksi pashta sangama sanjita sajita grihita chitano chelus tasmin lajayate kshana. The gopis were addicted to associating with their beloved Krishna, and thus they became captivated by him. Thus, even after putting their clothes on, they did not move. They simply remained where they were, shyly glancing at him. Right, so what had happened, you would think they'd take their clothes back and say, okay, we're leaving, because they had such arguments, right? But no, they were so satisfied. And the word addicted is very noteworthy. Addicting means you're controlled by something. In this world, addiction is an unfortunate condition being addicted to alcohol, being addicted to drugs, being addicted to sex, being addicted to anything undermines the value and quality of your life, right? But they're addicted to Krishna, and they're completely captivated. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, just as Krishna had stolen their clothes, he had also stolen their minds and their love. This verse describes the gopis as the reservoir of prem, right? They are the ashraya, the vessels, the reservoirs of prem. The gopis interpreted the whole incident as proof that Krishna was also attached to them. Otherwise, why would he have gone to the trouble of playing with them in this way? Absolutely correct, right? Perfectly correct. He was with his cowherd boys, very satisfied, wandering through the forest. But throughout the month, their love for him in this vrat was growing and growing, their urgency to see him. And he was feeling that in his heart as well. And finally, when Radhika came to bless these young girls, Krishna could no longer stay away. And so he had to make some excuse. The rest of the cowherd boys, you stay with Baladev, I'm going to do some little errand. And then he went and had this whole pastime. Krishna had overcome their shyness and forced them to come out of the water naked. But now, having dressed properly, they again became shy in his presence. In fact, this incident increased their humbleness before Krishna. They did not want Krishna to see them staring at him, but they cautiously took the opportunity to glance at the Lord. There is the suggestion that the bashfulness pervaded their bodies more than even previously. Isn't that remarkable? This is how love, pure spiritual love, works. It's the push and pull, the swinging, the pendulum of extreme emotion. They gave up all shyness completely, and they were willing, actually, even although they were embarrassed, they were laughingly coming out of the water. Right? Now they have their clothes, they're completely clothed, and now they're even more shy again. Right? Why? Can't understand the mind of transcendental persons, but you can imagine, oh, now we're out here, now we're clothed, but thinking, oh, he saw us like this, oh, what did we do? You know? And one of the qualities of love is that they will sometimes, even in the direct presence of Krishna, be shy to show it. Amongst themselves, we mentioned this some days back, that in the Venugita, when they are talking about Krishna's flute and how wonderful Krishna's qualities are, the different kinds of love of different devotees, they express their own attraction and love for Krishna, but only indirectly. And it's described, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj is describing that even amongst themselves, they're sometimes hesitant to reveal the depth of their own love, even though they know that all of their friends feel the same thing. The shyness, it's a very beautiful thing. It's a very beautiful thing, shyness and humility, right? And it's that emotional quality which lends such, it's such an ornament to the pastimes, right? It affects their mood and the way in which they express and exchange love. So now they're very bashful. And they don't want to leave Krishna, but at the same time now they're even shy to look at him. Right? So, and Radhika's the same way. Remember the pastime when they're walking near Nandagan, Radhika and her friends, and Krishna is by his cowsheds milking the cows, and Lalita and others say, oh, let's not go there. Look who's there on the path. And Radhika says, oh, what do we care for that? And there's a number of different pastimes, but this one I'm thinking is, then just as she's passing Krishna, her pearl necklace breaks. Whether it's broken by her own hand or it's broken by the desire, her own desire, and Yogamaya arranges it, but it gives her an excuse to stop and pick up the pearls. She can't directly show that she wants to stop and look at Krishna, but now that the necklace is broken, she can wait there for some time, picking up the pearls and glancing backwards, apparently reaching behind her to pick up a pearl, but actually with the purpose of glancing towards Krishna, being there a little bit longer, but not showing it directly. That would, be inappropriate. I can't show this. To him especially. And even my friends, I become a little shy. And this also gives insight into the role of the manjaris in the early morning when we do our Nishanta Lila Mangalartik. Only the manjaris can go into that kunja where Radha and Krishna are there at the end of their night pastimes, because she would be too shy to be in that condition among her Ashtasakis, who are also lovers of Krishna. They're more inclined to Radhika, and they get more pleasure seeing Radhika engage, but Radhika gets pleasure seeing them with Krishna. So there's a little conflict there, and she would be embarrassed if they were to come in at that time. But the manjaris are only her maidservant. Not only, but they have a different role. They never want to be with Krishna directly, so she can be with them without the same kind of embarrassment. So they're embarrassed to show their own love to Krishna and to their friends as well. So then the next verse, Ta samvigyaya Bhagavan again, right? Swapada sparshakam yaya tastan vanata drishtva Bhagavan. Oh wait, didn't change. I went to the next. Let's read this again. Tasam vigyaya Bhagavan swapada sparshakam yaya drita vratanam sankalpam aha damodaro bala. The Supreme Lord understood the determination of the gopis in executing their strict vow. The Lord also knew that the girls desired to touch his lotus feet. And thus Lord Damodar, Krishna, spoke to them as follows. Damodar. Okay, why the word Damodar? Mostly we relate that because of the pastime of Mother Jashoda, binding Krishna by his waist, right? But remember, at the end of that beautiful Damodar Astakam, Satyavrata Muni, Namo Radhikaye Tadya Priyaye, Namo Nanta Lilaya Devaya Tubhyam. I want to remember and offer obeisance to all your Leela, but also especially in my maturing prem to the Leela between you and Radhika. You are certainly bound by the love of Mother Jashoda. How much more are you bound by the love of Srimati Radhika? So here the word Damodar is referring to Krishna, but in reference to his Leela with the gopis, bound by their love. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, the gopis could have said here, O Krishna, O topmost enjoyer of loving exchanges, we have now obtained the fruit of our vow because you have created this extraordinary fraud. By that, you have driven the very life air out of our bodies. Then again, by your mercy, we have become fully satisfied. By making us come out of the water, you have used various clever devices to insult us in every way. Then, after draping our garments over your wonderful shoulders, you gave them back to us along with the jewel of your own heart, as expressed in your words. In response to this, we can only give you our bashful glances. Therefore, because we are simply foolish girls, we cannot discern whether this pleases or offends you. Since you know perfectly well the differences of time, place, and person, you should please speak whatever you desire to say. We will immediately go home upon hearing that. Desiring to answer them, the Supreme Omniscient Lord then spoke in 3 verses. So in this dialogue revealed by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, we're seeing a variety of emotions and a variety of moods. on the one hand, they're chastising or jokingly criticizing Krishna, as Lalita might, right? Or Radhika might. You've created this extraordinary fraud, right? And saying, what are you doing? You've committed this fraud. But by that, and they become a little bit more pliant, you've fully satisfied us by this. So we appreciate this fraud, right? And then you've used your cleverest devices to insult us in every way. So shifting moods, right? Or sometimes, as described in the dialogue of when Krishna and the gopis are arguing at the outset of Rasa Leela, or in the songs of Gopi Geet, the same words can mean different things according to the type of gopi it is. The Swapaksha gopis of Radhika, being more left-wing, will have one intention, and the far-right gopis, right, of Chandravali, her group, Vipaksh to Radhika, but they're right-wing. They're much more soft and submissive. And then there are gopis in various degrees in the middle. So even in this dialogue, it can hint both ways. But in any case, they're all expressing love and appreciation. Right? So now Krishna is going to respond. Sankapo vidita sadvyo bhavitinam madarchanam vadyanu modita sao satyo bhavitamarhati. Lord Krishna responds, O saintly girls, I understand that your real motive in this austerity has been to worship me. That intent of yours is approved by me, and indeed it must come to pass. So even after criticizing them for their action, I understand why you did this. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Krishna says, oh, chaste women, right? He talks about their sankalpa, their austerity, their vow, right? And he calls them your intent, your bhava, tinam madarchanam, and worshiping me. I understand your real that he's calling them chaste. Before he was criticizing them for their apparently loose behavior, but now he said, oh, you're the most chaste. Though out of modesty, you have not mentioned that your real purpose, your sankalpa in worshiping me, mad archanam, was to please me. I know, and I accept it. Because your desire was pure, it will be fulfilled. Since I am controlled by prema, nothing is impossible for my premi bhaktas to attain. So he's saying, you have exhibited that prema. I'm controlled by you. At this point, the Kripa Shakti, the mercy potency, made the Lord's power more evident among the gopis. Though the power was still under the control of prema and subject to the pastimes. By this power, Krishna understood the gopis were performing austerities in the worship of Katyayani to attain him, and thus he gave them the results. Gargamuni has said that Krishna was similar to Narayan, but now the gopis thought of Krishna as Narayan. But as Krishna said earlier, as their Narayan. Let the Supreme Personality be whoever he is. You remember when Krishna disappeared from the Rasa Leela near Chandra Sarovara, the gopis were searching everywhere for him, and seeing a group of them coming from a distance, he assumed that four-armed form of Narayan, just to trick them. And they thought, when they saw him from a distance, oh, there's Krishna, and they ran to meet him. But when they got there, they said, wait, we thought it was Krishna, but it's only Narayan, four-armed Narayan. So out of complete, pure respect, they offered obeisance, Namaste Narayan. We offer you our respects. Have you seen Krishna? And he points with one or two arms. He went that way, and they run off. Of course they respect Lord Narayan. He's the worshipable Ishtadev of all the Brajbasis. But Krishna is their beloved even beyond that. right? So, so this is very interesting. The Kripa Shakti, the mercy potency, which is sometimes described as the topmost potency of the Lord. And so he says something very interesting, which he also describes in other places. It's going to be described in the next pastime as well, when the Mathura Brahmanis, right, the wives of the Mathura Brahmins, are with Krishna, and then he sends them back to their place. They have great love for him. You could say that they had already manifested the willingness to give up their husbands. He says, go back. They said, how can we go back? We've given up our husbands. We don't care for them. We only want to be with you. But through different argument and different discussion, they have to go back. And in this case, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur will give an explanation of how their prema was controlled by the Leela of this. Krishna had a desire to teach something also by this Leela and to experience something. So here, also, the Leela of this Katyayani Vrat was still unfolding. So he personally came to fulfill their desire. They prayed to Katyayani, you please fulfill our desire, but Krishna himself fulfilled this. Actually, only Krishna could do this, right? In the ultimate sense. Katyayani could create conditions for that and could recommend, but only Krishna himself can give this ultimate gift, right? And in this case also because of the wish of Srimati Radhika, because she was there. He's under the control of Radha, and by her blessings, their prema reached such a peak that now Krishna, yes, I will give you this. And they're seeing this extraordinary power, but their prema is controlled by the Leela of all of this, right? By this very special pastime. It's extraordinarily beautiful, but it's also powerful preaching technique to understand the extraordinary nature of Gopi Bhav. So then he continues and speaks to them, Namaya Veshita Diyam Kama Kamaya Kalpate Bhajita Kvatita Dana Prayo Bijaya Neshate. The desire of those who fix their minds on me does not lead to material desire for sense gratification, just as barley corns burned by the sun and then cooked can no longer grow into new sprouts. Vishwanath Chakravarti says, Krishna says, if someone worships me impurely or improperly, I can make that offering pure because I am full of good qualities. And that's very comforting to us, because in our current stage of Vaidhi Bhakti, we're in the preliminary stages. Kanishta, even Madhyam, there's so many anarthas, our offerings are not completely pure. But if we, in our hearts, say, oh, I know I'm not pure, I know lingering in my mind and my heart are so many separate desires, please, though, I'm offering you this, please accept my offering. Please accept this bhoga I've cooked for your pleasure. Please accept this chanting that I'm doing to give you happiness, to glorify you, to make your devotees happy. I know that I'm inattentive, I'm not focused, I have so many offenses in chanting, but please, 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 let this become pure. Krishna says, I will accept it. I will accept it. And he will purify us. So then what to say of, speaking to the gopis, of your absolutely pure desire and pure love. So even though I chastise you and criticize you for doing a wrong thing at the end of this vrat, your love is so pure, your motive was so pure, how could I not totally accept it? How could anything stand in the way of that? The desire of one absorbed in me does not lead to material desire for sense enjoyment, because the object of love is the topmost spiritual entity, it results in the disappearance of material desire. Just as barley corns roasted in the fire can never grow new sprouts. So we have material desires, right? But if we're conscious, we're aware of them, they pass through our minds all day long while we're doing our bhakti. When we notice them, what should we do? We just say, oh, in a mood of humility and despair, oh, Krishna, oh, Gurudev, please remove these terrible obstacles, these terrible distractions from my heart. And by that, these desires, just like barley corns roasted in the fire, they can't create new sprouts. Those desires that linger in our heart, they normally would mature and ripen and cause us to do more mundane, sinful activity, but by praying and praying, they will be burnt and rendered impotent, and our bhakti will gradually increase. The word praya here means just as. Another reading of neshate is neshate. This is a traditional usage according to Chitsuk, the famous impersonalist commentator. And then the next verse, yata bala vrajam siddha mayema ram syatashtapa yad udishya vratam midam cherurachayanam sati. Go now, girls, and return to Braj. Your desire is fulfilled. For in my company you will enjoy the coming nights. After all, this was the purpose of your vow to worship the goddess Katyayani, O pure-hearted ones. So here is the promise, the total acceptance and the topmost benediction. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, bearing in mind that the most auspicious time for a lover's first tryst is the night, Krishna speaks like this to the gopis. Krishna said, O women, although you are perfected siddha beings, you have taken the role of sadhaks, practitioners, to increase the sweetness of my pastimes on earth. Right? See, the lila, or the prem, is tasted and controlled by the lila. They have this kind of prem. Yogamaya sets up this pastime. So, you've done this to increase the sweetness of my pastimes on earth. In the near future, you will enjoy with me and thus fulfill the purpose for which you undertook austerities in worshiping Durga, O pure women. But as we're going to find out, it's going to be many months. This is the month of Magh Shirsha, right? And so, right now, it's November. Sometimes it's December. Sometimes it may even go into January, right, by the end of it. So, Rasa Leela, this Saradiya Ras that he's referring to, is not going to take place until August or even September. This last time, it was the beginning of October. So there are many months to go, maybe 8 months, 9 months. They're going to be doing all their activities, but they won't have this divine union in Rasa Leela. And their desire is increasing like anything, and Krishna's desire is increasing like anything. So, the last verse about this Leela, Shri Shuka Uvacha Ityadishta Bhagavata Labhakama Kumarika Jayantyas Tad Badambojam Krishtran Nirvishur Vrajam. Shukadev Goswami said, thus instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the young girls, their desires now fulfilled, could bring themselves only with great difficulty to return to the village of Braj, meditating all the while upon his lotus feet. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, it was very difficult for the gopis to return to Braj because Krishna had already stolen their hearts, eyes, and other senses. And this part of the pastime will be described more in detail when we read the narration in Gopal Champu and Ananda Vrindavan Champu. Some other things are given. And then the rest of the chapter, there's 8 more verses, but this is the prelude to the pastime with the wives of the Mathura Brahmanas. It starts with, sometime later, Lord Krishna, the son of Devaki, surrounded by his cowherd friends and accompanied by his elder brother, Balaram, went a good distance away from Vrindavan, herding the cows. Sometimes later means it's summertime, and you'll hear that by the descriptions. Right? So in a previous verse also, he was called the son of Devaki, Devaki Sutta. Does that mean he's referring to Devaki in Mathura? No, actually. Devaki is also a name of Jashoda, which is described, there are purports of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur where he quotes, I believe, Padma Purana, saying that Devaki is another name of Jashoda. And Jashoda has great friendship with Devaki, the wife of Vasudeva, and it's said that she lent her fame to her dear friend because her husband, Nanda Maharaj, is the cousin brother of Devaki, Mathura Devaki's husband, Vasudeva. They're very close. So these 2 wives are also very dear friends. So that's this pastime. We got a lot of very beautiful conceptions revealed to us here. And in the next few days, we're going to hear it in different ways. I'm not sure which I'll read first. We have Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book. Very interesting to hear how he presents this, because Srila Prabhupada is giving all these pastimes, but in complete knowledge of the audience. His books are going around the world to people with no background at all. And so he presents these conceptions, but he gives verses and purports and descriptions all in one. It's an extraordinarily amazing narrative, the way he does it. Kind of like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, actually, because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives us philosophical explanation and increasing the descriptions of what's going on, the dialogues, etc. So I'll have to look at these 3 things and decide which one we want to start with tomorrow. But we're going to read them all. Going to read them all. I just want to make sure we have full appreciation for Srila Prabhupada's. And the more we read from the others, maybe Gopal Champu, maybe I'll read Srila Prabhupada's last, because then, having fully heard the various insights from these different acharyas, we might be able to detect what Srila Prabhupada is giving and sometimes hinting more. We may have greater appreciation for his after we've read those. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so we'll stop here. All right. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Gurudev, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the Vraja-kumaris, and to Bhagavan Sri Krishna, son of Nanda Maharaj, Devaki Sutta. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.